Midway, from the Japanese perspective. Commander Ryanosuke Mori watched the rolling Pacific from the bridge of the Akagi, the flagship of Admiral Nagumo's carrier fleet. The sea shimmered with innocence, belying the war that would erupt by dawn. Operation MI, the bold plan to draw the American fleet into a trap and annihilate it near Midway Atoll, had begun. Ryanosuke wasn't a warrior by nature. He had studied poetry in Kyoto, once dreamed of teaching literature. But war had called him, and he had answered. Now, at 37, he was the chief intelligence officer aboard the Akagi, tasked with interpreting signals and enemy behavior. His instincts had saved men before, but now no one wanted to hear them. "Commander Mori," said Captain Oso, appearing beside him, "we expect no enemy resistance until the bombardment begins. The Americans are not aware." Ryanosuke hesitated. "Their silence is troubling, Captain. Too perfect. Sometimes the absence of sound is the loudest warning." Oso offered a cold smile. "You think too much like a poet. This is war." 2 nights earlier, Ryanosuke had intercepted a shortwave message from Pearl Harbor. It was coded, but something about the frequency, the rhythm, it felt like a trap. He had reported it to Admiral Nagumo, who waved it away. "The Americans are disorganized and wounded," Nagumo had said. "They will react, not anticipate." But Ryanosuke had read about Admiral Nimitz. Cautious, clever, not a man to follow predictable paths. Now, as the fleet approached Midway, Ryanosuke received another message, this one from a submarine scout west of the atoll. Large carrier-sized objects sighted, eastward, repeat, course unknown. The message cut out. He rushed to Nagumo's quarters. "We must launch a scout plane to confirm, sir," Ryanosuke insisted. "The Americans may already be in position." Nagumo frowned, brushing ink across a strategy map. "We are launching a second wave. To divert planes now weakens our offensive." Ryanosuke's voice dropped. "If those are enemy carriers, sir, we may be walking into their jaws." Nagumo stared at him, then turned away. "Enough. Prepare the second wave." Ryanosuke left, heart pounding. The battle hadn't begun, but already something was unraveling. At 4:30, Japanese planes struck Midway. Reports claimed damage to runways and hangars, but American resistance was fiercer than expected. Anti-aircraft fire tore into the formation. Several bombers did not return. Ryanosuke stood at the radio station, sweat tracing his temple. "Enemy response delayed," an officer muttered. "The atoll is burning. They are weak." Then came a new transmission, from a scout plane launched too late. "Enemy fleet sighted, 3 carriers, northeast bearing, distance 200 nautical miles." The room fell silent. Ryanosuke whispered, "They knew. They were waiting." Nagumo ordered the planes on the carriers, armed with bombs for Midway, to be rearmed with torpedoes. It was a fateful delay. 30 minutes passed. Then came a buzz. Sirens. Enemy aircraft inbound. Ryanosuke sprinted to the deck. Dive bombers. Dozens. The skies over Akagi erupted into a maelstrom of flame and steel. One bomb tore through the hangar deck, igniting fuel lines. Another struck the flight deck, exploding planes waiting to be launched. The Akagi shuddered. Ryanosuke was thrown to the floor, smoke stinging his eyes. Screams filled the air. He pulled himself up, crawling through wreckage to the radio room. The communications officer lay dead, chest punctured. Amid the chaos, Ryanosuke grasped the receiver. "This is Akagi," he said hoarsely. "Under heavy attack. Carrier disabled. Static." Later, in the smoky aftermath, Ryanosuke found Captain Oso, bleeding but conscious. "Help me," Oso muttered. Ryanosuke hesitated. Below, the fire neared the fuel stores. He could flee, to a lifeboat, or stay. But another sound caught his ear, a faint SOS from a trapped pilot in the lower deck. Young Ensign Hiro Tanaka, barely 20. "Help, please." Ryanosuk stared at Osso. "Can you walk?" Osso nodded weakly. "I'll find him. Get to the boats." He descended into the inferno. Flames licked the walls. Smoke suffocated the air. He found Hiro pinned beneath debris, face blistered. "Commander," the boy whispered. Ryanosuk strained, lifting the wreckage, dragging Hiro out. An explosion rocked the carrier. The deck tilted. With strength born of desperation, Ryanosuk pushed the boy ahead of him, navigating collapsing corridors. They reached the lifeboats moments before the final explosion tore through the Akagi, splitting her in two. Hours later, drifting in the ocean, Ryanosuk watched the blackened remains of the Akagi sink beneath the waves. Smoke still curled into the sky like ghosts of the fallen. Admiral Nagumo had perished. So had hundreds of men. Hiro Tanaka lay beside him, barely breathing. "You saved me," the boy croaked. "I followed instinct," Ryanosuk replied. Something the Admiral did not. 3 of Japan's 4 carriers had been sunk. The battle was lost. But in the quiet that followed, Ryanosuk felt something shift. War had taken much. But in saving one life, he had defied its senseless hunger. Months later, Ryanosuk stood alone on a remote beach in Hokkaido, no longer in uniform. The war dragged on, but Midway had changed everything. He had been summoned twice by Naval Command, questioned about his warnings, his decisions, his survival. He had spoken plainly, and was quietly reassigned to a desk job in Tokyo. Now, he walked the sand each morning, listening to the waves. The Pacific no longer spoke of glory. It whispered of ghosts. Sometimes he wrote again, verses about fire and mercy. And every night, he saw the fire raining from the sky, the trembling boy, the inferno he had walked through. But also, he remembered choosing to go back. To save life, not take it. It was a small defiance. But in war, even that was courage. Would you like a sequel or character profile for Ryanosuk Mori or other characters?